Welcome you to one of our elementary schools. Thank you for coming this evening. And I wanted to let you know a couple of things. If you need to use the restroom, you can exit the back door and turn right, and you can go to one of the restroom buildings. And let's see, what else can I tell you? Well, we're going to have a special guest come up, Mr. Eric Peterson, and he's going to help me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Come on up, Councilman Peterson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Yes. Okay, I'm going to now turn over the meeting to Councilman Peterson.
Just a quick note before I turn it over to our MC tonight. If you notice, I think there's supposed to be another couple council people here. You won't see all of us at some of these events because it has to do with policy. There's a rule that only 3 of us can be at anything like this. So it's not that we don't care, we all do. You'll probably only see a few of us. Feel free to ask us any questions you want after the meeting. We don't always give you a direct answer because this is stuff that might come up in public hearing, and we don't want to show any bias so that everyone gets a fair shake at this stuff. So again, there's supposed to be a couple other council members here, and I will turn this over to our Vice Chair of the Planning Commission, Lynn Sameta, and she will run everything from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. And welcome all of you to the Huntington Beach Forum tonight. Huntington Beach Community Forum is hosting our town hall on homeless and public safety. So we appreciate that they have put this together. You know, probably most of you here tonight are members of the forum, and it's been really quite a force in our city. It was started by Michael Daly, who I want to introduce right now. Where's Michael? Started in 2014 because Michael saw a need in the city for more of a platform where we could engage our elected officials, discuss things with each other, issues before our city, what needed to be changed. He felt like there wasn't enough of an opportunity for civic engagement, so he started this forum. And we now are at about 15,500 members, which is pretty phenomenal, and just a little over 2 years. I also want to introduce the other admins or administrators for the forum. We have Stephanie Seavers-Green. I don't know that Yvonne is here, but Yvonne Morrow and Clay Allison are also administrators, along with Alexandra Haas back here. I'm hoping I didn't miss anyone. I think I've got you all. Yes? Okay, good. So anyway, it definitely is an opportunity to be involved in our city, and there are a lot of elected officials and appointed officials who are also members. So if you're not already a member, please join. So what is the purpose of our town hall tonight? Basically, there has been a great deal of discussion on our forum and the other forums, frankly, that have kind of some been inspired by the Huntington Beach Community Forum, other Facebook forums, about the homeless issues in our city and what is it that we can do about it. And so the purpose tonight is twofold, really, to give us more information from the frontline people, which would be our police department and all of his officers, and of course the city attorney has a role in it as well. So they're both here to speak to us tonight and give us more information and maybe tell us how we can help and what is it that we can do in this situation to help with homelessness. So the agenda for tonight is basically we're going to hear first from the chief, and then we'll hear from Michael Gates, city attorney. And then I have some questions prepared that were kind of drawn off of the forum discussions, different threads that went on the homeless issue. So I have those prepared in case those aren't covered in the presentation. We may already have them covered once we hear from from our two speakers. But if not, I'll ask those, and then we'll open it up to everyone. But, homelessness is really, there's a lot of different causes for homelessness, and there's a lot of different opinions on what we should do about it. And sometimes those opinions get kind of divisive if you follow the forum, you see some of these discussions and, strong opinions. And so what I really ask of everybody here tonight is if we can just keep this civil and respectful towards each other and towards our speakers, I think it's going to go a long way towards making this a successful night. So I ask for your cooperation in that. Also, just a couple ground rules tonight that I think would be really helpful. If you can let the speakers finish before we go to questions, that would be great, and then we'll hear everything they have to say. And the other thing is, let's stay on topic. There are lots of issues in the city that we could deal with, but tonight we're dealing with homelessness and public safety response to that. So I ask for your cooperation on that. Also, when we open it up, let's keep it to questions as opposed to kind of commentary, because we all have our opinions, but the chief and Michael Gates will give us contact information at the end for if you have anything more you want to add, please do. They will take that and respond to you afterwards. So those are kind of the ground rules. And at this point, I am going to turn it over to Chief Rob Handy.
Thank you, Lynn. My goal here tonight was to try to provide a little information on, I want to talk a little bit about the homeless problem in general, a little bit about some of the challenges and the environment that law enforcement works in the homeless population and within the state of California. And then I also want to talk a little bit about what we're doing and what our philosophy is, and then a little bit about some of the results that we've had. Homelessness, as all of you know, is a very complex problem. Lynn mentioned that. There's no one-size-fits-all solution to this. I don't believe it's a single-pronged approach in any one direction at all, whether it's a social service response or a law enforcement response. You have to have partners in this effort. You have to have a multifaceted effort, and I'll explain a little bit more about our effort there in a few minutes. Is there an echo back there? I keep hearing an echo up here. Are you guys good? Can everybody hear me in the back? Okay. One of the things I want to talk about is the problem in California is it has increased significantly with the homeless population. It's not just Orange County, it's not just Huntington Beach. Last week I was in a meeting in Sacramento with chiefs from all over the state. The number one problem, we do a little round table and we talk about each one of our cities and each one of our regions. The number one problem from every single chief sitting at the table in our round table was homeless and mental health. And they're interchangeable. So the homeless population, because of some of the problems, and that makes it that much more complex. And a lot of that has to do with mental health issues, substance abuse issues, and many more. But it's a very complex problem. It's the number one problem facing chiefs across the state and in many other parts of the country as well. It's not a secret that California has great weather. It's not a secret that beach cities have a great environment and that often attract more homeless people than other municipalities that aren't located near the beach or don't have the weather that we have. One of the things that talks a little bit, or one of the things I want to talk a little bit about is the problems associated with homeless. But as I looked up, I also realized I forgot to introduce my staff. So let me introduce a couple people who are here first too. I jumped the gun just a little bit. We have tonight with us Captain Dave Bonetta, who's in charge of our uniform division back here. And then just to his left, Officer Joe Schloss. In the back. Captain is back there as well. Thanks for coming. Officer been a great help with us talking in many regards, but I want to talk a little bit about them in a few minutes, but I wanted to introduce them, one, because you may ask me a technical question that they can answer a lot better than I, so I may actually refer to them as well. So I wanted to get to that. One of the biggest problems from my perspective with the homeless population, outside of the challenges that we deal with when we try to assist our residents or visitors with their problems associated with the homeless, really is the perception of safety that it causes, or the lack of safety perception that it causes. So when people see somebody sleeping on the ground and see bedrolls or see a group of homeless people, it makes them feel unsafe often. And that perception of safety is what we try to measure our success by. I'm going to talk about crime rates, I'm going to talk about arrests, I'm going to talk about statistics, that some of the metrics that we use to help measure our success, but truly our success isn't measured until people feel safe in their community. So I don't want to make you think that we are minimizing the problem, or that I'm making excuses, or that we're trying to say that we've been real successful by this number or that number. I just want to tell you a little bit of the facts as we see them, a little bit of the challenges as we see them. I know we can do a better job. I know we're not perfect. Our approach to the homeless has evolved over the last few years. It started with Chief Small before I got here, and some of the things he started to do when he noticed an uptick in some problems, and it has continued to evolve up until even just in the last couple of weeks we've made a few more changes. So we're going to continue to do that. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges. I already mentioned the mentally ill and the substance abuse challenges. A lot of people would think that we can just go out and take these people into custody and take them off the streets. And a lot of the comments that I've seen or heard in neighborhood meetings or out on the street or when meetings downtown, people are very frustrated with them taking up public space because they feel like they don't have a right, or it makes them feel unsafe, or they may be committing criminal activity. One of the things that we face as a challenge is the California criminal justice system really was turned upside down in 2012. So in 2012, the state was mandated by the U.S. Supreme Court to reduce their prison population by 33,000 inmates in 12 months. And as a result, the state passed a law that was Assembly Bill 109, or referred to as AB 109, that really changed the way prisoners are sentenced, changed the way people are housed in the state of California, changed the way people are held accountable in the justice system. And it released 33,000 inmates in 12 months. And a lot of those inmates that would have gone to the prison system are now forced to serve their sentences in the county jails locally. The county jails have filled up with those inmates, and they will no longer take some of our misdemeanors and lower level offenders. So there's been this trickle-down effect that started in 2012. That's part of it. That was the start of it. An additional part of that is Proposition 47, which many people voted for. Obviously, the majority of people voted for. In 2014, there was a proposition on the ballot, a voter initiative, that passed, and it made many felonies misdemeanors, and it made the thresholds for many felonies much higher, involving property crime and narcotics. So if you look at property crimes and narcotics, that is the overwhelming majority of the crimes related to homeless issues are property crimes and narcotics. It used to be when we got repeat property crime offenses, like if you went out and shoplifted multiple times, by like the fourth or fifth time, we could even charge you with a felony. Or if you stole something that was, a few $100, then it was a felony. Now that threshold is $960. No longer is it a commercial burglary when you plan and go in with the intent to steal in a business. That's no longer a felony. No longer is it a felony when you use or possess for personal use heroin, methamphetamines, cocaine, or any other class 1 drugs, or narcotics. So those people essentially now get a ticket. And it's one of our major challenges because even when we can arrest them, it's still a misdemeanor, an arrestable person. When one of our officers goes out and arrests that person and brings him to our jail, they spend about 2 hours in our jail. It takes that police officer about 90 minutes to get that person to spend 2 hours in jail, 2 to 4 hours in jail. And by law and statute on these low-level misdemeanors, we cannot hold them unless they meet certain thresholds or certain criteria. The average offender, unless they're stumbled drunk to where they can't care for themselves or others, we can hold them until they're sober or up to about 18 hours or so, just before their court time. Normally they get a ticket in around 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours. Oftentimes with homeless people, when we pick up a lot of their property and belongings with them, so say they have a shopping cart and a bunch of things with them, the officer arrests them, has to take all of that property and impound all that property into evidence. They have to itemize each one of those pieces of property individually and put them in a locker. By the time they're done with all that property, the person's released for the offense that they did. So we started to look at the problem a little differently not years ago, but 2 years ago. And one of the things we started was, how do we prevent these calls to begin with? So right now, this revolving door, this hamster wheel we're on is not working. So how do we prevent the problem to begin with? And last year in the fall, we started a program which many other cities around the country have been doing for many years. It's a best practice program. It's a research-proven best practice program where we dedicated a homeless liaison officer. Officer Ricky was our first officer, started in September of 2015. The philosophy behind this program, and we added Officer Sloss to it in January, but the philosophy behind the program is to get out in the community. They're assigned full-time to this. They get out in the community and try to identify homeless people. Why are they homeless? Why is this person on the corner? Why is this person begging? Why is this person sleeping on your doorstep? What is the reason they're here? If we can solve that problem before you have to call us, that's one call for service we prevent, or multiple calls, right? It's call after call, essentially. We receive 475 calls on average per month of crimes related to homeless people, just in the city of Huntington Beach. So my goal as a police chief is to minimize those times where you have to call us, right? So that's prevention. So how do we do crime prevention here? One of the best practices around the country is trying to intervene somehow prior to that call for service. So we send our officers out, they interview the homeless people. What we have found is many of the problems are smaller, lower level problems that we can help solve to get them on their way. A lot of times somebody is traveling maybe to Arizona, Southern California, Northern California, their car breaks down, they're stuck here, and they're stuck here for months. We've probably fixed 5 or 6 cars through donations and a foundation we've partnered with to get those people back on the road to where they wanted to go to begin with. Just another example, we had a young man here from Alabama who was sleeping down near the pier, caused for multiple problems. He and his group of homeless people were caused for multiple issues and concerns we had and complaints we had. When we really got into the reason he was here, he came out here, was brought here out of state from his employer who was doing door-to-door solicitations for a national publishing company, the magazine salespeople. Had a disagreement with a person that kicked him out near the beach. He had no money, couldn't get home, and he was here for about 30 days living homeless on our beach. So we were able to connect with his mother back in Alabama who wanted him but couldn't afford to bring him back. He couldn't afford to. Through the money that we raised in the foundation, we put him on a bus. And he got reunited with his mother. So from my perspective, the more people we can do that with, and the calls we can eliminate up front, that's the initial effort. The secondary effort is to educate them on the rules. You can't sleep on the beach after dark, you can't, after 10 p.m., you can't be drinking in public, you can't use narcotics, all the things they already know. So the first contact is somewhat of an educational contact where we can to try to build a rapport with them. And when there is a failure to comply, then we make an arrest. And if it's a repeat offender, we make an arrest. Just the 2 homeless liaison officers have made about 67 arrests since January. So that's in addition to all the social service referrals and other things that they do. One of the other things we did in the early part of this year was, or actually the latter part of last year, we hired a part-time homeless services coordinator. It's a civilian. She actually has a law degree and was a homeless advocate in her volunteer days, but we brought her on board. We pay her part-time as a contract employee, and she helps coordinate the services for the officers in the field. So if they run across somebody who needs a detox center, and that's the help that they need, she tries to help them find that so we don't tie the police officers up doing that. It's at a much lower pay rate. The officer can go on to the next thing and then come back to the person, that type of thing. So that's been very successful. We've offered some type of service to about 190 individuals. Some of that service is a bus pass to somewhere else. Some of that service might be putting them into a detox facility or arranging for them to get to a detox facility or somewhere else to where it gets them off the street. So a lot of that work has been done. We don't have a good measurement of any drop in calls for service yet because we're kind of chasing the curve. We didn't start tracking it until 2015. We had to go back in 2014 and manually count through thousands of calls which ones were related to homeless or not, but we since started tracking them in 2015. But from 2014 to 2015, we had a 25% increase in calls for service related to homeless individuals. If the research and the data is correct, and if our anecdotal experience so far is correct, eventually we're going to catch up to that curve and reduce those calls for services, which is an indication that we're reducing the problem that you're all calling about. So that's really the philosophy behind the Homeless Liaison Program, and that's just one of the many things we're doing. One of the other things they do and our other officers do when they go out is they post property that is left or abandoned or campsites. So we can no longer go out and just take it. Used to be, we'd go out with a pickup truck, or we'd take Public Works and take a truck out, we'd go clean up a camp or a few camps, and we'd go around the city and clean them up. After many court decisions, we have to now post the property for 72 hours prior to seizure. When we seize it, anything that could be of perceived value, we have to store. We have to store for up to 6 months. So we post the property, we take things that we consider of value, we throw away things that are not of value. Since January of this year alone, we have removed 15 tons of trash from homeless encampments. 15 tons. Public Works couldn't keep up with all the requests that the homeless liaison officers were sending to them, because what they do is they go and they post the property and they move people along. Well, they'll post the property and then they coordinate with Public Works to come in. They hire 2 contractors twice a week that come in solely to do this, and all they do is come in and clean up the homeless encampments that our folks post. So they go ahead, they post the property, and then they come by and sweep it. And I just talked to Public Works today to get the latest, and it was 15 tons of trash since January. So there's a lot of things that go into it. It is a complex problem, and to make it even a little bit more difficult for us, there's been a lot of adverse court rulings and some settlements that indicate the direction that the case law is headed for many cities. And there's about a dozen cities in California over the last 7 years that have been sued by the ACLU and other interest groups on behalf of homeless individuals for a couple of things. And the main area of law, and Michael will talk a little bit more about this, that has been infringed upon, the court has found, is when a city or a police department takes the approach of going after the homeless with specific ordinances to target the homeless, or enforcing specific ordinances to target the homeless problem. Because then you're targeting a class of people, not a behavior. So if we can just, I'll get to you in a second, so let me finish. If we talk just for a second about, for example, Mike is going to talk about a camping ordinance. If we go after a camping ordinance which says you cannot pitch a tent, which ours says essentially you can't pitch a tent. If you look out on the beach on a Saturday, you can see about 80 or 100 tents. And those are not homeless people. Those are people that put up their string tents, their other tents, their lean-tos to shade themselves. We can't indiscriminately go and say this tent is illegal because a homeless person is sleeping there. This tent is legal because it's a person who's sunbathing or a person who's sleeping in the park. Another example of that is people say, how can a homeless person sleep in the park? You can't prevent somebody from sleeping in the park. The court has recently ruled that a person has a right, a constitutional right to sleep in a public place. So we can't say you can't sleep in a park. If I say that this homeless person can't sleep in the park, I also can't say that Rob Handy can't sleep in the park. And it's a very challenging issue. And it has grown this whole class of problems from Fresno to San Diego. Police departments and cities have been sued and paid out millions of dollars or drastically changed their city policy. For example, Laguna Beach built a shelter in order to settle their case that was filed on them for enforcing their camping ordinance. Other cities, Marina, I think it is, or somewhere up north, up near, I keep saying Marina, it's not Marina. It's up in the Bay area, and it's a little small town on the east side of the Bay. They now have a law that says you can sleep anywhere in a public place between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. That was a settlement. So they actually have a law that says you're permitted to sleep anywhere on a public property or a place that could be deemed public space. And there's a difference there too. So a lot of our storefronts, some of it is private property extending to the sidewalk, where the sidewalk may only be 3 feet. Let's say the fountain area for downtown, for example. About half of that's private property, about half of that's public space, or city-owned property. A court would rule that all of that is public space, because it's public access and everybody has access to it. The front of Walmart, public access. So we can't restrict certain things that happen in front of a Walmart or any store like that has general public access. So there's a lot of those challenges that we work with every single day. It's not something we can paint a broad brush to, but it certainly is a challenge that we try to find unique solutions to. We'll continue to do that. We evolve and change on a consistent basis. We look for best practices in other cities across California and across the country. One of the other things we recently started doing in about February is we have an MOU with County Health, and we have a mental health clinician riding with a police officer 1 day a week. And they go out and they visit people, and referrals from other officers or calls throughout the week, and they go try to get these people help get them back on their medication or get them institutionalized. But that system is horribly broken. There's not enough bed space, there's not enough clinicians, we can't force people into treatment. The whole system for homeless people on the social services side of it is dramatically underfunded, under-equipped to deal with the size of the problem we're dealing with. It's a huge problem. Yes, sir.
I had a feeling when I came here tonight, this is going to be nothing but a excuse fest and noble platitudes about your inability to solve the problem.
I haven't even gotten to that yet, so if you want to just wait, you're happy to answer your questions. You kept raising your hand after I asked you to wait. If you'll wait, I'll get to your questions.
Okay, I'd like you to correspond with me regarding this issue when you're done with your spiel.
Certainly, I'll answer your question when we get to the questions. The next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is a couple of the things that I think that kind of point to, at least we've made a little bit of progress. And the efforts of the men and women that work for their police department don't stop. They're out every single day. You may see 2 or 3 on one corner dealing with one person and you think it takes one person. But I tell you, there's reasons for doing what we do. A lot of the contacts that these officers are making are on unknown individuals under unknown circumstances that often result in violent encounters. One of the things that we have noticed is a dramatic increase of criminals in the homeless population. So people who have a violent past or a criminal history, a significant criminal history, that are now homeless, and we're dealing with them on a low-level crime, but their propensity for violence is high. And a lot of times that takes more than one officer, or 2 officers sometimes, it depends on the size of the group. Our officers, again, are out there doing that. One of the things that we measure our success by, or partly measure our success by, and again, I qualified this earlier with perception of safety, but is our crime rate. So we try to look at the crime rate, which in Huntington Beach in 2012, it spiked up about 18% in property crime. Violent crime was down a little bit. In 2014, it came down pretty significantly, so crime was down about 12%. 2015, it bounced way back up, so we were up about 16% in 2015. The rest of Orange County, the average city in Orange County, including the sheriff's contract cities, like if you talk about, some of the South County cities that have the sheriff's department as a police department, if you look at all of those and all of the municipalities and average them together, is a 26% crime increase in Orange County in 2015. Huntington Beach's increase was 16%. Crime in downtown in 2015 went down 3%. This year so far, crime in downtown is down 13%. Our arrests in the downtown area are up 49% this year so far. And many of those are homeless people. So we have really been focused on a few of our problem areas downtown. Every 3 weeks, we hold what we call a crime suppression meeting. And we get around and we try to measure the metrics and the crime data and calls for service data from throughout the city to decide where we put our resources, where we want to concentrate on, or who needs to work what area. We sit around with our command staff, our detectives, and our supervisors, and we deploy our people that way. One of the areas that popped up as significant problems was downtown, and another was Oakview. Those are 2 areas that over the last 12 months or so have been a big focus for us. As the rest of the crime has gone up across the city and in Orange County, crime in both those areas has come down. And we believe that some of that is the focus and the solutions that we applied toward it. I don't think we can take all the credit as a police department for crime going down in any one area, because it changes quite a bit and there's a lot of factors to that. But that is one thing that we look at that helps us measure out whether or not we're being effective. And I think that although you see more homeless people downtown, although there are more low-level crimes going on that many people see, I do still think we've made a difference in downtown from what it was in the past and what it could be based on the population that we're seeing now. Again, I don't think that it's all fixed. I'm not here to tell you that there's not a problem, and I'm not here to tell you that we can't improve, because we're working on that and we'll continue to do that. I just want to take a quick look at my notes and make sure I picked up the things I wanted to cover. Captain, did I miss anything? I know that there was a couple of things you wanted me to cover. I want to make sure I got them all.
No, you covered them, what we talked about. The whole
issue that we have as a profession is dealing with everybody on an equitable basis, and that's what the chief talked about. We have an ordinance, we can't just target because then you run into the whole issue of discrimination, as Mr. Gates, I'm sure, can address it and get some more clarification from the legal end. But that's what our challenge is. Right now, we're working on it. We're working on looking at the ordinances that I'm sure he'll get into a little further on.
One of the things, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Dave, there's a couple of things I wanted to expand on a little bit of that in the legal environment. So one of my jobs as a police chief is to balance a lot of things. And a lot of times we walk on a fine line as an organization. One of the things that we balance is our liability exposure. So if we have a high number of lawsuits and we're doing things that are getting our officers sued, and our officers get sued personally for these things. We had 2 officers this last year that were found responsible by a jury for a civil rights violation that was about a 90-second intrusion, which means a step over the threshold of someone's apartment, for 90 seconds. The officers were held personally liable for a violation of civil rights, which stays with them for their career. Through Michael Gates in his office, they were able to ultimately get that settled, even after it was found, and get the officers exonerated. It took a lot of effort, it took a lot of money. And that area of that law, that was involving a loud noise complaint. The area of that law where we get into minor violations of the law and municipal ordinances like this gets very sticky. And when you talk about a 90-second intrusion into somebody's space that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's a complex problem. So we have to be very careful. I don't want to be responsible for telling our officers, I want you to go out there and clean up all these encampments and throw everybody in jail, and they're going to get personally sued. I can't do that. Our officers legally have discretion. I can't tell them how to handle every single call. I give them general parameters, we give them conditions, but an officer goes out and feels like that it hasn't reached the threshold of a crime in their judgment, it's their decision to not make the arrest. We can get around that sometimes by another officer looking at it or a supervisor and they'll make an arrest, and we usually don't have those problems. But there has to be some judgment in there has to be some evaluation of the totality of circumstances. Another problem that we run into with arrests is a misdemeanor not committed in our presence. We can't arrest for unless we have a private party or a third party make a citizen's arrest. And just real quickly, for your own information, you don't have to be like physically go up and touch the person to make the arrest, but you have to be willing to say that person committed that misdemeanor in front of me, I was the witness, and I'll show up in court to testify to that effect. And be willing to place them under arrest through the officer. You don't have to physically go up and arrest them. But if we have somebody that says, I want you to go arrest that person for urinating on the sidewalk, and we go up and contact that person, and we didn't see it, and the person says, I don't know what you're talking about, I didn't do it, and they're standing, there's a puddle of urine there, we still cannot make that arrest unless we have somebody that witnessed it that is willing to help us. We run into that every single day. People don't want to go to court, they don't want their name in a report, and I understand that. I'm not disparaging any of those people whatsoever. I may make the same decision as a private individual. It's a complex problem. So I just want to tell you some of the environment we're dealing with. But Michael, I'm sure you have what more to say too, so come on up.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Before I make a few comments, I'm going to make a few remarks and then we'll get to some question and answer. So those who have questions, you can feel free to direct them to the police chief or I, and we'll be happy to answer them. But before I make my remarks, I just wanted to thank Gina Clinton-Carvin again for making this venue available for us. Thank you. And I wanted to thank Michael Bailey and Stephanie Green for making this happen for the Huntington Beach Community Center. I saw a couple people come in. Councilwoman Barbara Douglas is here. And then Councilmember Billy O'Connell is here. And then if I missed any other council members, no? Okay, all right. So enforcement's a complicated issue. I just wanted to let everybody know, I've received a number of questions about, what is the city doing legally? What the police doing? Is their law enforcement legal? Are they doing enough? I even heard a little bit of criticism come my way by telephone and email. Is the city attorney and the city directing the police to stand down or to not enforce the law? And emphatically, I want to tell you that that's not true. My office and the other departments in the city hall have a terrific relationship with the police department. I campaigned heartily 2 years ago that I was going to support law enforcement as much as I possibly could. And I give you my word, I support law enforcement as much as possible. And I think the police chief and the other law enforcement officers will be able to say, yeah, Michael's brought a lot more support to law enforcement than maybe they previously enjoyed. So without a doubt, when issues come our way about what's legal, what's not legal, and we go off and do our research and we come back, it's through the lens of as much effective law enforcement as possible. That's the lens through which I view things, and that's the way I operate. So if the police want tools to enhance law enforcement, and we go off and do our research, if we can provide those tools because they don't run afoul of other laws, then we are supportive of those tools. And if it requires a new ordinance, then we'll approach City Council for a new ordinance. But we, for my part and my office's part, we work tirelessly in a lot of capacities for the city, but in large part to help law enforcement. So if anybody has any other questions about that, I'm happy to take questions on that front. I just wanted to mention too, the police chief mentioned a lot of things that the offices are doing. A lot of the policies and procedures that they're effectuating to address a lot of the homeless issues. I want you to know too that in my office we're always doing research to look for ways to improve our ordinances. A lot of our ordinances are somewhat dated. There are ways that we've already identified to make them a little bit stronger, but there's, as the chief indicated, we have to be careful. We have to do it in a measured way. Even though we want to do it in the fullest way, it has to be measured because we don't want to run afoul of other precedent, legal precedent. Because once we do, we get sued for implementing or enforcing that policy or that ordinance, and then, the courts can tell us you got to take it off the books. So there's no point in testing the waters, especially if we know other jurisdictions have failed. Laguna Beach had their camping ordinance fail. We had a sleeping in the cars ordinance. You couldn't sleep in your cars. Well, courts have struck that down. I think that was a Ninth Circuit decision. We actually had to repeal that in Huntington Beach, because our ordinance was almost exactly like Laguna Beach's ordinance. That doesn't mean that we don't have tools available or an ability to look for more tools. We have a new draft of a camping ordinance right now that was already tested in a couple other jurisdictions. And in the ordinance, the draft that we have, it was tested, the federal court said, no, that camping ordinance or anti-camping ordinance is good. It doesn't violate civil liberties and it's constitutional. So I have that draft now, and I'm going to be working with council members in the police department to propose that we update our camping ordinance. So we're constantly working to look for ways to strengthen our ordinances and to look for new ordinances and to support law enforcement. And so that effort is ongoing, it's continuous, and we work with City Council and the police department to make that happen. So there's more to come on that. And I think Billy wanted to make a few remarks, and then I think we can open it up for questions.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight, and I also want to thank the folks that put this on. I was at another event earlier, so I was a little delayed. There's other policies which is an impact on homelessness in our communities that a lot of people don't realize or are aware of. HUD recently came out with some policies which will probably end up creating more homelessness on the streets of Orange County. And why do I say that? 2 years ago, there was 26 projects in Orange County funded for transitional housing. Today, there is 0. And I'm not sure if we have a placard here with the, well, somebody, if somebody can look at this, let me just try and explain real quick to you. If you look at homelessness, at the top here. Underneath it, we have transitional housing and emergency shelter. HUD has wiped out all transitional housing in Orange County. Okay? So what we have left is emergency shelter, and there's very few emergency shelter beds here in Orange County. So when you drop down to your next two boxes, you have what they call permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing. In order to be eligible for permanent supportive housing, you have to be chronically homeless and have a disabling condition. And many people, especially homeless women with children, don't fall within that category. In order to be eligible for rapid rehousing, you have to be able to qualify for a job. And you have to have a good FICO score. So what happens here in this situation? We have a whole bunch of people that are not eligible for rapid rehousing. End result is we have more homelessness in Orange County. Now, just last week we had a bipartisan press conference where we have Republicans and Democrats reaching out to HUD to advise them of this situation. Now, the folks back in Washington feel what they're doing is correct. But what we can tell you today is they're halfway into a 3-year study where 40% of the people have already fallen out of rapid rehousing. End result, more homelessness. So I want each and every one of you to be aware of that. And I also want to commend our city, the city council, the police department, and the district, the city attorney, because we've taken a proactive approach. We've gone out. We're one of the leaders in the county of Orange. We have police officers assigned out in the parks, trying to help people, moving people into permanent housing. I've seen it happen with my own eyes. And what I can tell each and every one of you here today, the money that we invest in trying to solve this problem, the benefits far outweigh the cost. Now, why do I say that? If you take somebody off of welfare and you help them get a job, you take somebody out of prison and you help them get a job, you reunify a mother with their child, it's a win-win. I've seen it, I've lived it, and I understand it. And I just want to share with you, Orange County has one of the highest per capita rates of millionaires in the United States. We also have one of the highest per capita rates of homelessness next to Detroit, Michigan, and that can be sourced by the Orange County indicators. Last year, one organization in Huntington Beach had requests from 3,903 homeless women and children, and they were able to serve 565. So there's a huge need in our community. It's a huge, huge need, and I think we're moving in the right direction to try and fix it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Billy O'Connell, for that. So many of the questions that I kind of had prepared have been answered, so I'm going to reduce the amount, and then we're going to open it up to the rest of you. Sir, you'll have your chance in a moment, okay? So the first one that I have is that I understand that the police are essentially the first responders for the homeless in Huntington Beach. What sort of resources are available that your officers have to help when they encounter people? Chief Handy. Do you have, referral sources for food, shelter, and so?
Before I answer that question, I did forget to do one thing, and I don't even know why I made notes, because I didn't look at them when I was up here, but I had it in my notes. I wanted to talk just briefly about the city's effort overall and the homeless task force that was created. The city council appointed a homeless task force where each council member appointed a person. Heck Valdez was the chairperson. He's here tonight. Ralph Bauer, former mayor, was also on that task force. I don't know if I missed any others who were here. They spent a year studying the problem, the city's response to the problem. They came out with a host of recommendations. The council is evaluating those recommendations, and we're working on those. One of those recommendations was to strengthen our municipal codes, do a review of all the municipal codes, which Michael's office and our office has been doing, and there's other things in there as well. I'll jump back to your question of what do our officers have as resources when they deal with homeless people. Our homeless liaison officers have a lot more resources at their fingertips, so a lot of times officers will refer them and say, hey, can you go back and talk to the group at the fire ring down at the beach that's living there, because we have this problem and that problem. So then they go back out the next day and follow up, or that evening and follow up. But some of the resources they have, we have access to dozens of nonprofits in the county that offer services, and that's why they go and explore what the needs are. So if they need shelter, if they need food, if they need their car fixed, whatever it is they need, then the coordinator we have back at the office, she sends out an email to a group of providers or people who are assisting from the faith-based community, from nonprofits, and invariably one of them jumps in right away and will provide the resource that's needed. They also have access to established nonprofits like Coach Children's Home and Interval House, Kathy Roy, that's what I keep on calling it, time for change, Build Futures. Build Futures and others that provide immediate resources, and each one has a different niche, like I keep wanting to say time for change, Build Futures, 18 to 22.
24.
18 to 24 is the age group that she works with, and Kathy takes those people from us and gets them into housing. The two homeless liaison officers have put over 20 people into housing from January to May. Those are 20 less people sleeping on the streets. Not every person they come into contact wants services, that's the other problem. That's when the arrest part kicks in. So then they're up to the 60 short arrests, and then cleaning up the encampments and their property and everything else. So it's always this line, they're kind of stepping in and out of dual roles constantly. They're the right people for the job, they both have the great personalities for that, they can flip the switch and be the toughest, meanest police officer you've ever seen. And then they can also turn around and be very compassionate and caring and get a mother and a daughter into housing somewhere. So the resources are really, there's probably hundreds of resources, not just dozens. One of the things they do have access to, we have a partnership with the Coast to Coast Foundation, and also they're a nonprofit in town that works with Anaheim, Fullerton, and probably about 5 other police departments. And we have an account set up that they don't have access to. They set up the account in their 501c3. We have direct access to the account. Our officers basically have an ATM card. So if they need to put somebody up in a hotel for the night, we run across many people who are in crisis here in town, whether it's like from a domestic violence incident where we find a woman sleeping with her child in the car, we want to take them to a hotel and put them up in a hotel. And they have the resources and the ability to do that. People can donate directly to the Coast to Coast Foundation. Other people donate to the Huntington Beach Police and Community Foundation, which in turn puts it into the account of the Coast to Coast Foundation. So far, I think we've run about $7,000 through that account in the past 9 months or so that has directly benefited getting people off the streets in Huntington Beach. And that's all been private money, it's not taxpayer money. One other thing that the Coast to Coast Foundation does is once a month they come out with us with a group of social workers, and Gabe and Jill will take them around to the different homeless people, and then their social work team engages with them directly and tries to get them help and get them off the street. Because a lot of times they're not going to take the assistance or the help that's offered by a police officer. So we try to get the social workers, the mental health clinicians, all engaged with them on the street to help solve that problem for you and for us both, so we don't have to come back.
I just answered 2 more of my questions on here, so this list is getting shorter. One of the questions that I had for either of you is, I know there's an Anaheim shelter that's going to be coming online. Are we going to have access to that to be able to house anyone from Huntington Beach?
It's a county-wide shelter, so all cities will have access to it. Anaheim and Fullerton are the 2 that are helping fund it. So they have certain beds set aside for them, but we will have some access to it. There's a lot of logistics to work out in the meantime, and there's also going to be some wraparound services that are provided there and in that area. So we will have some access to it. Quite honestly, the distance that it is, it's probably going to be a ripple effect here, or just like a very small ripple for us. But I think it will be a resource at some point.
Okay, thank you. And again, some of these questions are coming from the forum threads on our forum. So I'm going to ask this one. There's a perception by some that criminal behavior by the homeless does not lead to citations, while similar behavior by others who are not homeless leads to citations. Can you address that perception, please?
It's hard to address hypotheticals or something that somebody has seen, but I can tell you we've arrested over 600 people downtown this year between January and the beginning of this month. And a lot of those arrests involve homeless people. A lot of times someone will call us and say, I want you to arrest that homeless person for camping. They're in the park, they have a bedroll, they have a sleeping bag. We can't. We can't arrest that person for camping. I can't arrest Michael Gage or Rob Haney for laying there with a sleeping bag in the park during park hours either. So a lot of times we can't do what you want us to do. We try to find other ways to solve the problem, whether it's moving them along or whether it's maybe arresting them for an alcohol violation or something else. One of our best tools right now to deal with the homeless population is the under the influence of alcohol or drugs charge. And that's one of our highest charges right now, our highest number of arrests right now have been for those offenses. If somebody is intoxicated or under the influence to the point where they're a danger to themselves or others or can no longer care for themselves, then we can take them into custody. And that's what we rely on most often for that type of an offense. The other one is blocking the sidewalk. Many people call us and say that person is sleeping here. Our ordinance says you have to substantially block the sidewalk. We have lost 3 times against the same person who has taken us to court over them laying, or not laying, but standing and blocking the sidewalk and not moving at our request because we could not prove that they blocked all access to the sidewalk because there was a way around them. So we got a little trouble. That's one of the ordinances we're trying to tighten the language up in. But it's over and over again. We had an arrest of a prolific offender downtown recently. I don't want to give names or anything else, but I think the guy wore a black trench coat. A few months ago, everybody knows who he is. Everybody knows that he's difficult. Everybody assumed and told us he was dealing drugs. We weren't able to catch him. We tried to undercover officers to purchase narcotics from him or marijuana from him. We couldn't. We tried following him with cameras. We tried all kinds of things. We never were able to catch him. We finally used a tool that we don't advertise a lot in public. But sometimes we use GPS tag property and other things. And we were able to successfully catch him in a sting where he stole property while he was under surveillance and while it was tagged. And when we got into his pockets as well, we saw that he had a quantity of drugs for sale. And we were able to go back on video and show a hand-to-hand transaction. We went to court, it went to a jury trial. He was convicted of mere possession only because he was homeless and he had no other place to store his marijuana. So it couldn't be personal use because he could use it over a longer duration of time. Wow. I'm not kidding. So it's not as simple as we all think. So we literally invested months into one person. We invested months of enforcement efforts into one person. We all know he's back. We're still working on it, and we're going to continue to work on it. But it's just one of those things that it seems real simple to many of us, and it does to me also as a layperson. When I look outside the system, it seems, I just saw that person sell drugs, I'm going to call the police need to come up and arrest them. We can't just go up and grab them and go into their pockets. We just can't. There's a whole lot we have to get through to take somebody's liberties away, to detain them, to search them, and to take them to jail.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, I'm going to be done with my questions and open it up. Thank you for your patience. Do you have a question?
I do.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say that I kind of perceive this whole thing as a exercise in providing PR and political cover for the abject failure of the police department and the city attorney.
I assure you that is not the case, but go
Okay,
ahead.
no, let me continue, please. I have solid recent experience dealing with this issue. My mother-in-law lives on Yucca Circle in Huntington Beach and backs up to an easement that was abandoned by the Navy and is jointly owned by the city of Huntington Beach and Westminster. It's filled with dry brush. Homeless encampments were allowed to stay there despite my numerous complaints up against houses that have low wood eaves and wooden fences. A completely unacceptable safety issue. Okay, the city, everybody pointed fingers, oh, that's the Navy, oh, that's Westminster, that's Huntington Beach. Nobody wanted to do anything about it. It was a joke. I called the gentleman on the homeless task force, never received a call back. I called the Navy, I went to the city of Westminster, I went to the fire department, I went to the police department, over and over again. Do something about this. We can't do anything about this. I will tell you straight up, the people in this room that pay taxes have the right to expect safety and not be threatened by methamphetamine addicts, okay, I'm not done, methamphetamine addicts, petty burglars, and criminals living in these spaces. I've asked why they can't fence this off. They said, well, it's an easement. It needs to be available for emergency vehicles. Fine. Emergency responders shouldn't have to worry about running over homeless people. Post no trespassing signs and throw them out. Nothing's been done. It's a joke. The whole thing's a joke. You've all seen the pictures of the homeless encampment on the Facebook pages, out in the easement back there. Okay, I've spent the last 2 weeks dealing with these guys. all they've done is driven them 100 yards down the road east into the easement, okay? So it's a joke. You guys have a responsibility to the people that pay taxes in this community to deal with the safety issues. I have a 70-year-old mother-in-law and a 70-year-old neighbor of hers that live in fear of people coming around, engaging at 6 o'clock in the morning, car burglaries, cutting their screens, okay, and dealing with all the code enforcement issues you refuse to deal with. Trash piled up as far as the eye can see. That's a code enforcement issue. Send the code enforcement people back there, have them tear that crap out of there. They don't have a right to be there, and you guys need to step up and do your job.
Sir, if you want to talk to Captain Bonetta in the back, we'll make sure that we're looking at the problem appropriately and do what we can. I can't tell you we can solve your problem. It sounds like there are multiple jurisdictions involved, but we can take a look.
Quit pointing the finger and passing the buck.
Clearly,
That's the problem.
clearly you're upset. If you want to provide the information to the captain, we'll be happy to take a look at it and make sure we're doing it.
Absolutely, I'm upset.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wait, I have something to say towards what you have to say. Can you wrap it?
Yes.
Hang on.
Excuse me, sir?
Just real quick.
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, the gentleman just left, I don't think we're gonna get in a position of pointing fingers at anybody. The two officers just went out to go talk to him. They have had contact with that gentleman. There's an open case. We are working on cleaning that up. The encampment they're talking about just recently got cleaned up. We're working with Westminster and the Navy, but we are doing things. The officers have talked to him before. They're gonna communicate with him again. But in terms of what was portrayed, there wasn't just, we didn't just completely ignore it. Officer Schloss has had many contacts with him, and he's gonna go out there and follow up with him right now.
One of the things that I've learned, government,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that camp hasn't moved very far. It's only moved 50 yards away, and now it's less easy to see because this person has bought camouflage netting and has masked their place.
The officer told me part of the issue, as the chief said, it's jurisdictional. He moved into Westminster.
Yeah, well, so that goes to one
We've
of my
been talking to
questions.
Westminster, and we're working with them. That's some of the issues that we.
So do you work with our neighboring communities?
we absolutely do.
Yeah, there's a crime here, all he has to do is step across the line and he's out of your jurisdiction? Because this guy was really riding the fence.
Okay, I can't go and tell Westminster you go arrest that guy. What we can do though is we can reach out, we work with our neighboring jurisdictions all the time. One of the things that I can tell you, government does not ever move fast enough for any of us. And there are a lot of regulations and a lot of rules, and it is difficult when they cross jurisdictional boundaries or they do things. We don't have the enforcement power to go into Westminster and tell them they're trespassing and enforce the law in Westminster. We can't enforce local ordinances in Westminster. We have to be very careful about those things and bring our partners in, especially when it involves the federal government. It's a whole different ballgame when it gets into some of the flood control channels, whether it's county jurisdiction, whether it's the Army Corps of Engineers jurisdiction. There's a lot of complicated issues with it all over.
So apparently we have a microphone over here for questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
So obviously, with the turnout tonight, this is a really hot issue for the residents of Huntington Beach. So I guess I'm turning to you and asking, what can we do to help fix the problem? Because we heard a lot about everything that we can't arrest them, we can't do this, we can't do that. But as citizens, we're the ones stepping over them. We're the ones that are fearful. We're the ones that pay the property tax, and then I have coffee with them in the morning. So what can we do to help fix this problem?
I think there's several things you can do, and honestly, the biggest thing I think you can do is communicate with your elected officials, pay attention to the election. There's a lot of ballot initiatives that are on the ballot this year. There's another one that's going to further create more problems for us to legalize marijuana. The constant decriminalization and de-incarceration of people causes us problems. There's a ripple effect in the community. There's a criminal justice pendulum that swings all the time. We swung way too far as a state with 3 strikes, and some of the things we did, it swung back. So we're now decriminalizing things and moving towards and handcuffing law enforcement from solving something. It's not just a law enforcement issue. So I think communicating with us, when you see a homeless person commit a crime, call us. Are we gonna be able to fix it every time or arrest every single time you see something or call us? No. But keep calling us. I mentioned earlier, we meet all the time and we study the data and we try to deploy our officers accordingly and solve those problems. So we track every one of those calls and every one of those problems. So I think pay attention to elections, work with the elected officials to work on policy the best we can. Vote, pay attention and vote to the issues we're voting for. And then I think also support some of our nonprofits that are helping the homeless community.
So, Mo, did you want to come up to the microphone or do you want to ask from there?
I want to ask you from here.
Yes.
Of course, I understand it's not going to go away any soon, and this is going to be a long-term challenge. My question to the chief is, knowing that many officers are retiring by the end of this year and many more by next year, and I've already seen lots and lots of new officers with less experience coming into camp. Is this going to be a bigger challenge with less experienced officer? Do you have enough officers in your force? Do we need to increase the number of the officers? Are there any more training for these new officers who are coming aboard? I heard somewhere in the number of 15 to 24 in the next 2 years. All the experienced officers are retiring. So it's going to be obvious that the department is going to lose all these experienced people and not having the resources. So my question is, do we need more officers, and are there going to be more training for the new ones?
Well, we do need more officers. So we were at 237 police officers before the recession hit, or right about the time the recession hit. We went all the way down to 193. We've climbed back up to 222 authorized positions. We currently have 216 filled, so we're down 6 bodies right now. We have about 60 employees sworn in civilian and backgrounds. We've hired 70 employees since I arrived in December of 2013, new employees. So we are rebuilding, we are getting back, or hopefully going to try to get back to the levels we were at in the past. It's a very complex issue right now with PERS and some of the other costs for the city though. It's a much slower growth than we thought. It's not as easy as just automatically raising that number back to 237. The challenge with attrition is one many law enforcement agencies are hitting right now, because 30 years ago, we had a big surge in hiring of police officers. So many agencies like us have an aging workforce that are eligible to retire, a group of them. We train people by putting them in the academy for 6 months, and then they go in 6 months of field training. It takes about a year to train a brand new officer. We also take lateral police officers, and that only takes about 3 months to get them trained, because they've already been trained in the academy, they've already been field trained by their own department. Probably 75% of the officers we hire are lateral officers, so they hit the street quicker. Some will argue that this generation of officers and newer officers, it's almost like our kids with technology. They can do things differently. They can do things a little better in some cases. Some cases that experience or lack of experience hurts us, but in other ways, the experience they bring to the department really helps us. So we have some of our new officers teaching technology in our records management system to our older officers who have a much harder time with technology. Does that make sense? So I think we're hiring a more educated, more diverse workforce than we've had in the past, as all police departments are, and I think that brings a lot of value, but we certainly are going to lose a little bit more experience in the next few months. But right now, again, we have about 60 employees and backgrounds. We're going to lose a little step with attrition, but I don't think we're going to go back very far. Kathy.
Okay, my name's Kathy Tillison of Build Futures. We take homeless youth, 18 to 24, off the streets. We actually do use rapid rehousing, which is national best practice, but not all the homeless are the same. That's the one thing we really have to understand. You don't treat them all. Some need permanent supportive housing, some need transitional housing, some need rapid rehousing, some need emergency shelter. So that's the first thing to understand. Resources. We have a website, buildfutures.org, with over 1,300 resources in Orange County by category. So if you want to look at resources, the resources that exist, look on our website, buildfutures.org, under resources, and it's by category. Secondly, Chief Handy couldn't be more correct on what you can actually do, and that's advocate to the Board of Supervisors and your political figures, because our mental health system is seriously, seriously broken. Now, Lisa Bartlett and Andrew Doe, the Board of Supervisors, have started a mental health, exploratory committee, you can get involved with that and advocate for that. We need to fix our mental health. There is so much money being put into mental health in Orange County ineffectively and inefficiently. So much money, you have no idea. So the money is not the problem, it's how it's being used. So advocating and getting involved in that. The other thing is detox. Chief Handy mentioned about people, whether it's drugs or alcohol. In Orange County, if you don't have private insurance, there's literally less than 15 beds. There's literally less than 15 places in all of Orange County beds for him to take someone who really wants to maybe get clean or detox off of whatever they're on. It doesn't exist. So there's nothing. So they're handcuffed. They can't do anything because we don't have as a county. So he's not making excuses. I mean, they're trying their best, but you guys have to advocate. You have to get involved and get the things they need. And obviously, the final thing is housing.
I have a question for you. So you're saying there is money, but it needs to be advocated. What are we advocating for? It's being, we don't know.
Okay, for example, the mental health system has over 200 mental health programs that are funded.
Okay.
Through mental health, it's mental health, MHSA funding and things like that. They're not really meeting, there's not a match between the programs and the needs of the community.
Right.
So that's one of the things the committee, Andrew Doe and Ms. Bartlett are looking into. But what you can do is contact them and encourage them to do more.
Kathy, could you possibly maybe post on the forum how we can get involved, some suggestions at, what can we do with this task force or whatever it is at the county that you're talking about? Let's get involved.
Yeah, contact Andrew Doe or Lisa Bartlett, who are heading it. Okay. And they had a Good Friday afternoon, a meeting in Board of Supervisors chambers.
Okay. If you have anything more specific, that'd be great too. Wendy, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Wendy Hawkins. Sean and I live downtown by Farquhar Park and Lake Park, and it's getting really bad in our parks. We don't even want our kids going to the park. Yesterday, the day before last when I voted, a homeless gentleman sitting on the sidewalk, wouldn't move, cussed me out, needles all over the place. So since Chief Handy, I know basically your hands are tied and you can't go take their possessions. There was a lot of trash in the parks that day, so I went with a couple trash bags, put gloves on, and cleaned up the parks by my house. I know as a citizen, I deal with this. I also work part-time downtown, and every day when I go to work, by the back door, there were human feces, there's needles, there's broken pipes. We clean up every day back there. There's broken bottles. When it's nighttime, you look around, someone was sitting on my car basically one night. It's getting really bad. So once again, what can I do to make it safer? Maybe we can have like a neighborhood watch program. All the neighbors get together and talk and help clean up. We also have a huge motorhome, a huge van, parked at the park. It's been there for months. Then it moved over to Lake Park, and the lady taped it all off, painted it a different color, moved it back. She just keeps going back and forth. And then at night, they all come on their bicycles, lay out all their trash, their bags, leave it all till the next day, and they all take off again. So they basically make camp that for the night, and they all camp out. There's also a huge fire. They make fires at night. Is that illegal or not? To have a bonfire going in the middle of the park?
I thought it was illegal, and it's also illegal to be in the park after it's closed. So we can enforce a park curfew.
Okay.
And call us for that. People can park and live in their cars if they're parked legally. If they're not parked legally, you can call us for that. If you go and there's needles and other things, or a homeless person cusses you out on the sidewalk, call us. We will come out and try to deal with that person. We may not be able to arrest them, but we'll come out and deal with that person. So we may not be able to go and arrest them and drag them off to jail for cussing at you, but we certainly will come out and talk to them.
I don't mind being cussed out if you, I've got some haters.
Obviously, it bothers you, though, and it bothers anybody. It bothers any of us.
Eating trash and
We
everything really bothers me.
We all should be able to walk down the street and not have that happen, right? We all should. I agree with you 100%. Call us.
Okay.
If it's okay, I'd like to piggyback on top of that just for a second. She had made reference to cleaning up, and the city of Huntington Beach can't go pick up their stuff anymore. can we, as a private citizen, I live in southeast Huntington Beach, and when I take the Newland Street down to the beach at the animal shelter right there, they camp there as well. Can I, as a citizen in the city here, can I back my truck up? And I'm serious about this.
Now, let me tell you there's two things. One, we do pick stuff up, we have to post it for 72 hours, it's a little cumbersome. They'll move their property over, then we have to repost it. It becomes a cat and mouse game. But you as a private citizen, if you went and picked up their property and they claimed it had value, then it could be a theft.
Okay, so my thought was.
If it's trash, I don't think you have any issue, but again, if they all of a sudden say, that sleeping bag that you threw away had value, that was my property. If it's in public space and it's others, then it's really not. I'm just saying, you put yourself in a little bit,
I got you.
you take a slight risk of them coming after you or attacking you or yelling at you or accusing you of something.
I got you. So I know that this isn't something that you would recommend, but.
That's what I was getting at.
I understand that. The potential for conflict is great in that situation. But my thought is, okay, they're gone during the daytime, they're walking down to the beach, they're leaving their stuff there. Can I just pick it up, put it in the back of my truck, and bring it to the homeless shelter in Costa Mesa? Am I legally at risk for doing such things?
You can't pick up no property of another.
If it's public property and it's laying on the sidewalk, I cannot.
If it's property that has value, you can't pick it up. If it's trash, you can pick it up.
Can you perceive it as trash?
That's open to interpretation. So now back to Wendy's point about picking up trash and things in the park, I'm not talking about that, you can do that anytime, but if you go to an encampment, if you pick up a bedroll that looks like junk to you, it may be of value to the person who slept on it, and if they claim that, and claim that you stole it, then we're obligated to at least look at that. Would we come and arrest you for that? Likely no. But do you open yourself up to at least an allegation or at least a confrontation? So we don't recommend that.
My name is Ralph Bauer, and I used to be on city council, and I was a board member here in Ocean View, and this is fascinating, and this is really kind of an exciting time to listen to all of this. Let me add a different dimension to it. First of all, if you think you can pick something up that looks like it's trash, don't ask anybody, just pick it up and do it. If you didn't ask the policeman what's legal, what's not legal, and then you want to be bound by that, that's up to you, but I'm just saying. So let me tell you a little bit about the homeless task force. 7 citizens got together and examined this in great detail. It took about a couple of years. Release your report. You can get it on the internet if you want to plug through the city internet system. It's here. One of the problems you have is that you need resources to do some of these things. The city has a certain budget. Any public agency has a certain budget, and they have to rearrange that budget in some way. Budgets are pretty tight in cities, so that's part of your problem. As Lester over this, probably the best solution to homelessness that occurred in the United States in the state of Utah. And the guy that did it, the guy named Lloyd Pendleton, and he's been here, and I happen to know the man. Just to give you a flavor of what it takes, it took the state of Utah 10 years to reduce their chronic homeless by 80%. So you've got a time schedule here. In addition, public bureaucracies have to arrange their priorities, if you will, to move money from one source to another source. Talk about policemen. You can always use more policemen. There's a sort of budget limitations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that problem. Let me give you a flavor of, first of all, and you might want to read this over. If you get on the internet, you can dig it out and take a look at it. Each of these recommendations requires money. And somehow city council has to respond in some meaningful way to deal with this. And I think they are slowly but surely. Let me just also comment, my experience with police, certainly the current administration, they do a super job with the resources they have. They do a super job dealing with the existing laws that exist in the United States. Now, we don't all agree with all those laws, but the police has to enforce it, so my hat's off to Rob Hanley and his people. Let's talk about a couple of things. I call it the big four of homelessness. Number one is housing. If every homeless person in Orange County today wanted to have a house, they don't exist.
there's not enough housing. If you don't have enough money, there's really not enough housing. I'll give you a simple example. We get vouchers, right? Vouchers are money which we pay for rental housing someplace. There are not enough landlords who will agree to accept that voucher because they don't want homeless in their operation, so that's part of it. So currently, we're working on a project to try and convince landlords that they really need to accept these vouchers. So that's a small step, but it's moving in the right direction. The county has the transitional housing, they're moving in that direction. I met with the county today and suggested that they put aside at least 10 beds in a new housing that's coming along, designated for Huntington Beach, and they sort of indicated, yeah, they could probably do that. So housing is an ongoing problem, okay? You might advocate to city council that they ought to provide the kind of the zoning that you need to provide the sort of housing that's needed, because we just don't have the housing.
So Ralph, just real quick, can you kind of sum up your comments? Because we have a lot of people who still want to ask questions. I know you're super knowledgeable about homelessness.
Second thing is behavior modification. You can sometimes, if you do it right, you can convince people not to be homeless anymore. It takes time, it takes expertise. You don't have the manpower to do that. Healthcare, even though the fact that money may not always be used wisely, there are not enough places to take people who have mental illness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Jobs. Let's say the same argument, the individual has some skills and some talent. They got to get them spruced up looking good and find out what their skills are and then get them a job. Currently, we don't have a good program. We're working on it. We've got a good program to provide people with jobs that have the capability of having jobs that are currently homeless. So all these things have been identified and are being worked on. The resources to brought to bear on these things takes a little time. There's a willingness on the part of the bureaucracy to do all of those things, but it's just going to take time. So just help us on the way.
Thank you for your service on the task force as well. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ann Palmer, and I am a member of the Community Forum. I have three things, and the first is I did some research, and just for general knowledge, our police force is actually understaffed compared to other communities in California of the same size. For instance, Glendale has significantly higher numbers of police, so I think they are doing a good job. I'm not advocating for a lot more police, but just again, I think they're doing an excellent job. Where I live, we do have tweakers. Anything that's not nailed down is gone from your yard, your garage, 3 minutes, a bicycle in the driveway, and it's vaporized. So I think it's citywide, and I know that it is coastal, and even though it's all over California and Sacramento, the beach cities have the worst of it. And I fled Santa Monica for this reason years ago, and I'm really saddened to see it grow here. Again, we all have to come together and look at some of these things. Housing, my idol here in advocating for the right type of housing for this community. I think we can also address homelessness, and I have some inroads on that for outside people that can come in and create the kind of housing that we would appreciate having here, not the kind of housing that we don't want in our community, that will still address some of the homeless problem. And finally, I have a question about people at risk. And so we have a lot of people, our local people, that are at risk of becoming homeless. They're just on the edge. So I know the police force is not a social agency, but some direction on how to prevent people from becoming homeless who are at risk, who are residents of this community and have fallen on hard times. I think getting a real long way.
Thank you. Is that a question?
That was a question. Yes, who do we call?
I think when we run into those people, usually it's on a call for service, whether it's a domestic violence call, or a lot of times it's a family member who's at their wit's end with a family member who has a substance abuse problem and they're going to kick them out or something like that. We try to use some of the same resources that Kathy talked about, or through our part-time coordinator, to identify a resource that they may be connected with. There's not a whole lot of help out there for those kind of people, to be quite honest with you.
There are others, though, single parents who've lost their job, who, just really see things spiraling down.
There are services that we connect them to, like Colette's Children's Home and many others that help people who are slipping into homelessness. But at the same time, there are so many people in the community that are on the edge and living paycheck to paycheck. There's not a lot of services for volume of those people.
Perhaps you can post some of those in the forums.
So I see that the line is getting a little longer, so I'm going to ask again if we can just keep it to questions at this point, because we want to make sure everybody has a chance. So go ahead, thanks.
Okay, I think it's, you guys got a lot of criticism tonight, and I just would like to real quick say that we've been working in the park, Central Park, and I just wanted to thank the city council, Michael Gates, Chief Hanley, Lieutenant Rodriguez, and Officer Ritchie, and all the folks for doing a great job, and we really appreciate. And I can tell you for sure that they are doing a great job. So sorry to have to hear some of the criticism. It kind of scared me something about sleeping in the park. So we still have the park being closed from 10 to 5 in the morning, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so that's not. Oh, good. That's what I'm trying. Thanks.
Thank you. Amy. Hi.
Amy Mason, and I just kind of wanted to address a couple of things really quickly. What I'm here to represent is a company that's recently been created called Waves of Recovery. What we are is a group that's going out into the streets of Huntington Beach, and we're handing out cards to people that are seeking treatment. We're trying to get aware of all of the services that are available. It's been going on since about January. Just so you know, I'm very proud of the fact that I myself and 3 other people have pulled 18 people off the streets of Huntington Beach and put them in treatment. Okay, so our goal is to put cards in the hands of any citizens that would like them. We'd like you to pass them out to anybody you see that you think might need some advice. Feel free to stop back and see me. And then I had spoken with Officer Joe and whatnot, so I would like to make sure that I'm talking to you guys as well to find out, what I can do from here. What we are is a group of either myself, Al-Anon, or people that are in recovery and treatment, and if you know that type of program, what they need to be is of service. And so we're taking addicts back to addicts and getting them to talk the addicts off the street. It helps on both sides because the addict sees where they were less than 60 days ago, and they're being of service and helping them in. So we're finding a really rewarding program. If anybody wants any other information to help us out, I'd love it.
Thank you. And they can talk to you in the back and make sure they have your name as well.
Okay, thanks.
One of the things I wanted to address real quick, the parks do still have a curfew, a park curfew. We do go through at least once a month and do sweeps in different parks in the middle of the night. We can't be in every park every night. If you see somebody sleeping in the park after hours, call us. We do prioritize our calls, and we go to crimes in progress kind of in an order of priority. A person sleeping in the park would be a lower level priority, but eventually during the night we're going to get to them. And we will go out and we will get them out of the park. We'll cite them for being in the park and get them out of the park. So if you see,
the same thing, sir?
pardon me? It is. The beach closes as well, 10 p.m. to 5 a.m.
Is there a curfew for public space?
No. There is not.
Ad or material?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I have two quick questions.
Okay.
One of them, backing up to Central Park, my backyard does, and we have a lot of people sleeping in the park. And just wondering where, because I do care and I want to help, where is like a quick reference if I do come in contact? A couple years ago, I called the police department. They came out as a family of 4 with an infant. And we couldn't find a place for them to live. And they lived in our trailer for a month until we personally gathered up the money to help them get back home. But is there for me, because there's a couple other people that I talk to frequently outside the grocery stores and such, and he just wants to go home and he doesn't have that capability. So where would I find like quick references for that instead of having to call you guys and
Well, there are many references. I think Kathy's website has how many references on it, Kathy?
Over 1,300, but, she's talking about housing, and a lot of it just doesn't exist.
I think one of the problems too with housing, I think the best thing is to call us, honestly, because in between our officers and our coordinator, to get into housing or even try, you have to fill out an application. You have to have a trained or certified person to fill out certain applications, or you have to be connected to a certain group to do it. One of the things is, Gabe, can you or Joe throw out maybe your email addresses real quick? If I'll give everybody a chance to get something out to write, you can contact them directly with your email. If you have somebody like an encampment behind your house, you don't wanna call the police or tie it to dispatch, but you can send them a note, then they will get to it when they come in their normal course of their rounds. They start every morning about 3:30 or 4 in the morning. They try to go out where they can get people when they're in their encampments, to warn them and to post and things like that. But Gabe, Joe, if you guys, because I'm not sure if it's your whole name, part name, first initial or what, but if you'll throw out your email addresses, please.
The email address that I can be reached at is jschloss@hbpd.org. Spelling is J for Joe. Last name phonetically is S as in Sam, C as in Charles, H as in Henry, L like Lincoln, O as in Ocean, SS like Sam, at hbpd.org.
And mine is
HBPD.org.
Mine is GRICCI@hbpd.org.
And if any of that fails, go on the website, click contact the chief, send me an email, and I'll direct it to them. Kelly Rodriguez is our lieutenant. Many of you know Kelly as well. She's out of town and not able to be here tonight, but did you have something else too?
My last question, in regards to the homeless, their animals. I have come across a gentleman who sometimes gets intoxicated too much, and he might kick or hit his dog. What are my rights if he might be abusing? I've seen him when he's not intoxicated, and he's fine, and he's very loving, but what do you?
You don't have the rights, but you call us, that's animal cruelty. We would actually take the dog and put it in a shelter, take it to the shelter, and he'd get a citation for animal cruelty.
Okay. And when they are picked up, what happens to their animals when they're taken into custody?
They go to the shelter, or we try to find somebody to care for the animal while they're in custody. Usually we can find a friend or somebody that'll keep the animal for them. If not, then it goes to the shelter.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. You mentioned that your field officers are doing the well-researched best practice intervention with the homeless. Now, I've Googled homeless assistance for Orange County, and there are many agencies and volunteer organizations, some of them with federal and state funding. You mentioned that once a month you have the social workers go out with your officers. Are any of the other agencies or organizations regularly out there conducting this best practice and well research?
Yes, there are many organizations that operate in Orange County, and some operate in Huntington Beach. BCIS, Beach Cities Interface, yes. I get messed up with the acronyms, but they have a trailer over behind Central Park over off of Gothard, and they are actively engaged every day with the homeless population. Getting them services, trying to get resumes, get them jobs, give them food. They do all kinds of things for them.
And any county or state agencies involved?
Any what?
County or state?
Yeah, the county mental health agencies involved quite a bit. There are some county homeless resources that are dedicated. They are building a shelter in Anaheim, as was mentioned, and then the county dollars trickle down to a lot of the nonprofits that we're connected to.
My other question was, as this is a statewide issue, you said it was the number one thing for all the police chiefs up and down the country. Are there any activities being taken?
There's a state bill in the legislature now. I had a meeting with Senator Winter when I was up there in Sacramento last week. He has a very significant funding bill for housing. It's a very ambitious proposal, way on the liberal side, I guess you could say, if you were talking about politics. I'm not sure it'll pass, but there are some different efforts up at the state level to try to help us.
I was just wondering about the police associations, like the police.
There's constant advocating. The governor included $20 million in his budget to trickle down to law enforcement to assist with homeless and mental health problems. I think they have finally realized that they are pushing the problem down to the local level and not dealing with it. So the governor included the $20 million in his budget. The Assembly approved it. The Senate cut it. It's in conference committee now. Several of the meetings I went to in Sacramento last week was to advocate for that funding. That funding we've gotten in the past to deal with AB 109. and a little bit last year to deal with some of the fallout for Prop 47, and many advocates are trying to take that away from us. So the governor included it in the budget, we lobbied the governor hard for that, as a police chiefs association, the California Police Chiefs Association, and we're still trying to get that fixed in conference committee now. My guess is it's a little better than 50-50 that we'll get some money that comes right back locally to help us.
Okay. Well, thank you, officers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I live on, back up to the railroad tracks that some of you guys may have seen a post on Huntington Beach Community Forums recently. They're building an encampment on abandoned railroad tracks, just north of Alice. And the question is that legal?
No. It depends on whose property it is. If it's private property and they have the permission of the property owner, then yes.
They don't look like a railroad company employee.
That's what I'm saying. It just depends. It's easy for me to give you an answer and a guess, but I don't know.
Okay, that's good. We've called a couple times. Neighbors called, my wife had called yesterday because they were starting to rake behind our house, thinking they're gonna start building behind our house. And we don't want them tweaking and doing their drugs back there. And it's obvious they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing because they're pacing back and forth. Normal people don't pace back and forth on the railroad tracks. And they called. You guys, I know you guys come out, but you don't follow up with the people who called. That would be good if you guys could follow up with the people who called and let us know what's kind of going on. I don't know if you posted back there on that place or not. That would be good to know also. I'm going to be going to Home Depot probably this weekend to put a higher fence up on my wall to help protect ourselves. Because we do not feel safe, which is one of your goals, is to make your citizens feel safe. We do not feel safe back there, having people back there with bicycles stolen. I mean, I saw a guy pulling his bicycle through the weeds until he could get to the part of the railroad tracks that was good enough for him to ride. This was a recumbent bicycle, three-wheel bicycle. It's about a $1,500 bicycle, I'm guessing. I kind of doubt he bought that bicycle, just a hunch. So if your officers are really going out there and looking at this stuff, are they really taking that into consideration that, did they buy these bicycles? How come they're white and black when they are probably just repainted over? And then there's flames there. This is what I can see from my backyard. And today I saw a wheelbarrow there, and they've transplanted a palm tree in the middle of the tracks. It looks like they just got the side of it. So we don't know what they're doing back there, but I guess they're calling it home, pretty much. There's pictures on the community forum, if you want to take a look at those. I know your officer, at least one of them, has poked their head through the fence over from the industrial side. What can we do as a resident in that area? I've lived there for 22 years, I've lived in Huntington Beach for nearly 30 years. It's never been like this in the past. We signed up, we knew that railroad track back there was not real active when we moved in. We're okay with that. We're not okay with people living back there though.
We can work on that problem. So I need you to talk to Joe or Gabe, or Captain Bonetta, and make sure that they have your information and what the problem is. A lot of the problems like you're describing, typically our officer who responds to your call has a difficult time handling that in the 5 or 10 minutes that they're out there. That's why they're assigned full-time to it. They carry a caseload, so to speak, that they would open up a case file on that. Then they'll keep coming back and checking and working on the problem on a longer-term solution instead of what a police officer can do in 5 or 10 minutes when they respond on a regular patrol basis.
This is kind of, my next question is kind of off topic. It's graffiti. Okay, that's one.
I just have to stop you only because we see.
Yeah, so it goes back to that same area because they're spray painting things and it's.
They call us and report it. We have a graffiti line. There's an app you can report the graffiti on that the Public Works will come out and paint it over. And then we also get a copy of that.
So Public Works is responsible for painting over back in the railroad track areas?
It depends, but they do have a graffiti cleanup. They have to get permission when it's on private property. We can't just paint up people's private property. But we will try to address it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The one thing about the comment about the bikes, our officers see things every day that they know may not be right. And then they may look at me and say, I can't afford the car I'm driving, but that doesn't mean they can take it. Does that make sense? Especially when I tell them it's my car. It's my car, it's none of your business. We can't just take it. And that happens over and over and over again. One of the things is people are leaving, I want to cover a couple real quick things. One of the things we've done in regards to bicycle theft and some of the problems downtown, we do a lot of bait operations. We've been doing them for about maybe 15, 16 months. We've arrested about 20 people in the process of stealing bikes. With bolt cutters and other things, we sometimes post pictures of people on our website and are looking to identify that person. That's because we missed them or they slipped through somehow. But 9 out of 10 of those people we catch in the act or catch as they leave. We are doing some of those proactive things. One other quick thing I wanted to mention again as people are leaving, I'm sorry, we'll get to this in a minute. I just want to make sure you all realize how important it is for us to be here listening to you, because this is what community policing is all about, for us to understand your concerns and what your problems are so we can adjust to that. The other part that I want to make sure that you understand from my perspective is the criticism is important to us. We can't fix every problem, but it's important to know where we can improve. And we will constantly always strive to improve. We may not always get to your level of satisfaction, but we'll do our best.
So we had hoped to kind of wrap up around 8, and I do see people are leaving, so if you can kind of keep your questions quick, we'll try to get through the 4 of you.
I'll try and be quick.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Most cities have vacant buildings that they pay to maintain. Has anyone looked at that as a possible solution to house some of the homeless?
Kelly, we don't have any vacant buildings we're paying to maintain right now, do we? I don't think we do. We did look at some, there was alternatives with vacant city property to move services like BCIS or others to, and we just don't have the space.
Okay, because I know a lot of cities.
Yeah, we just don't.
Hi, thank you so much for coming. My name's Eileen Harris, and the reason I'm here is I saw a little boy almost get hit when he was trying to evade a homeless person, and even to this day, it brings me to tears, seeing how close he almost got hit by this homeless person. So my question to you, and Officer Ricky was amazing, he called me, and Michael, thank you for planning this forum, but it scared me so much, because I thought if that was my child, how would I feel if my child was hit by this homeless, trying to evade the homeless person. So as you can tell, it's a very emotional subject for me. My question to you, though, is have you considered a park ranger, somebody who could patrol the schools, patrol the parks, protect our children?
We have. There's a couple of things on that note that I'll address. One of the homeless task force recommendations was to explore the park ranger program again. The budget that is under development right now for next year does not include a lot, if any, growth. There isn't money in there for that. So I'm not sure where that'll come from, if it will, but eventually the council's going to have to wrestle with some of those decisions on a policy level. One of the things that we did do, Kelly Miller, are you still here? I saw you earlier. Kelly is here. Kelly worked with the downtown bid, and I haven't seen Susan or any of them here, but Susan, I didn't see her, I'm sorry. Kelly worked with Susan and others to develop a partnership. We started a couple years ago with an ambassador program downtown. We're tweaking that a little bit this year, and they've started a pilot program which will start mid-month this month with private security guards downtown. Patrolling private public space downtown in an effort to try to control some of these lower level nuisance issues. The gentleman over here mentioned about, can I pick up their trash? Private parties can do things that the government can't. We're required to get due process. We're required to do certain things. Private parties are not. Security guards are not. Security guards can't do some things we can do, but they can do some things we can't. So we're working on a few of those things and trying to get creative. I'm very appreciative of Visit Huntington Beach and the downtown bid for helping fund that, because it really is going to put extra eyes and ears and enforcement out there for us of some of these things.
Anything you can do to keep an eye on our school area as well would be much appreciated.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Steve Daniel, do all the business downtown, and I'm part of the bid. I just want to tell you, Chief, you've come a long way. Downtown has definitely gotten better, been a little worse once in a while, but gotten better. The question I have is for Michael Gates, and it has to do with the downtown, the homeless, which has gotten bad, then better, and it's gotten better in the last couple of weeks. We will say that. But a lot of the businesses would like to help out by buying the planter boxes that a lot of these homeless people sit around and make it a little bit uneasy for people to come downtown. Is it possible we could buy the fountain and the planter boxes that are there as businesses so that we can ask them to move along? And that's a question.
So, good.
good question, nice thought, but the courts have said that even private property that is treated like public property gets the same legal treatment as a public forum. So if you own a supermarket and you own the parking lot and you don't want people on your parking lot with signs or whatever, you can't just kick them off, because even if there was a private parking lot, because you are a store or a supermarket, you are open to the public and it's treated like a public forum. Even though you may own the underlying fee, it gets the same treatment as a public forum.
Well, my name is Victor Bailares. Now, this is not a question. How are you, Mr. Gates? I just want to let everybody know from Huntington Beach, there is a website called factoc.org where there's a lot of resources. There are family resource centers out there for anybody that's interested in helping out the homeless. This is not a question, this is just something for everybody in Huntington Beach. There are family resource centers throughout Orange County, and there's one specifically as well located in the Oak View community, so maybe helping that resource out there, there are plenty of resources. Thank you. One more question.
I just wanted to ask about all the motorhomes that people are living in. That hasn't really been brought up. They move around from different parking lots.
We struggle a little bit with the motorhomes. And I can tell you, I think Councilman Peterson or Councilwoman Douglas, if she's still here, or Councilman O'Connell can tell you, we've struggled with this ordinance between the balance of allowing our residents to park their motorhomes and their trailers. When we create an ordinance to allow them to do it, it also allows homeless people to do it. So we have this balance back and forth. If it's over 22 feet, it can't be parked on the street for certain periods of time without a permit. About 10 years ago, when the first OV ordinance was adopted, the police department got direction from the council that we would not enforce adjacent to parks. So that's on our website, that's on our advertising material, because at the time, the theory was people can come and park their motorhome next to like Lake Park and set up their awnings and everything else and enjoy the park. We didn't have the homeless problem then that we have today. So we need to relook at that a little bit, which is one of the ordinances we're looking at. But if the motorhome is parked legally and they're living in it, we cannot do anything about it.
I'm mostly talking about, I live at Garfield and Magnolia, and lately, more and more often, they move into the parking lot, stay there for a couple days. Used to just be one, now there could be 2 or 3. And similar to Walmart, and I notice it happening more often.
Are you talking about the parking lot at the park?
No, at the Home Depot.
See, now the Home Depot, I can't control their property, but certainly we can talk to the manager if they're there. If you call us, we can go and we can try to talk to the manager, work with the manager to move them along. There is a code where they can't allow people to live there all the time, but we can't control who they're allowed to park or how long they park there.
Yeah, it's just, it's happening more often, so I was just curious.
It's a little bit of a challenge for us. The RV community, so to speak, because many more people are living in their cars. And it's become a bigger and bigger challenge for us.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I did say last question. Is it really quick?
It's really
Super quick, go ahead. Last question.
Really quick, just to a response to what Eileen said about the range owners, we don't have the funds, but I know that you just are about to open the brand new community center for the seniors, which I think is fabulous. Perhaps there's a way that a senior group can kind of work in shifts and kind of patrol the park, and I think it would make a lot of people feel better. No, I'm serious. I am serious. See, what are you laughing at? I think seniors are valuable contributors to our society. Anyway, yeah, exactly. You have the senior volunteers who help, and they help at a lot of school events. So that was just my idea.
Something to talk about. Thank you for your suggestion. So, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, taking your time out to learn and try to be part of the solution. We really appreciate that. So I think we'll have a post on the forum. I'll work with Michael Daly, some of the contact numbers that we've gotten tonight that we'll put out there, so you all have those resources as well. I know Michael Gates wants to say a few closing words. So again, thank you everyone for coming.
Hey, thank you again, everybody, for coming out. When Michael Daly asked me if I would do this, I don't think I waited a second to say, yes, I'd be happy to. I think it's really important not only to be communicating on the forum, and I've met so many great people in the forum, but also to communicate in a forum like this. So I just want to echo what the chief said. I also want to stress my willingness to work with you, and I want to hear from you. I have a stack of business cards here with not only my email, but my cell phone number. So if you, hey, I am available all of the time. I mean, my wife happens to be here, so she can attest to that. So if you want my card, I've got plenty of cards here. I'm always available if you ever need anything. But thank you so much. I see a lot of familiar faces from the forum. I really appreciate you coming out, so thank you.
I did not bring a stack of business cards. Let me give you my email real quick. I'm not giving you my cell number, sorry. My email is robert.handy, Handy, @hbpd.org. And then my office number is 714-536-5902. My cell number is not published. I'm not elected, I'm sorry.
Well, right before we have to say goodnight, I want to mention something that might give you a little bit of ease. Some mentioned Walmart in the parking of the motorhomes there. I think some of you are aware that the school district actually owns the land under Walmart. And if you're not, the Ocean View School District does own that land, as well as Lowe's. The land under Lowe's is a ground lease, so the taxpayers of the Ocean View School District owns that. So what I wanted to tell you is, if you've ever been to Lowe's, you know that you can't buy alcohol there.
Walmart.
Sorry, Walmart, not Lowe's. You're not gonna drink while you're at Lowe's, okay. Excuse me. The point is, you can't buy alcohol at Walmart because it's a school. It's a school property. And so the laws that are governing that property are a little different than city property because it's state property. So what I am going to do is I'm going to go back and talk to our deputy superintendent and our superintendent about looking into how can we possibly enforce not allowing the motorhomes and the campers on that public property and creating a nuisance like that. So it's something I'm going to ask that we look into. And with that, I would like to say thank you so much to the chief, the city attorney, of course, Ms. Sameta, and to Michael Daly, and to Stephanie, Councilman Peterson, the other council members, and to all of you. Thank you so much for coming tonight, and thank you for visiting Circle View Elementary School and hearing this presentation. Good night.
Were you able to hear the fans are all back? I wanted to throw it out there.
So you take that whole thing?